All right, Judy, while you're doing that, I can open the meeting. I'd like to open the meeting for the Wakefield Conservation Commission for Thursday, May 14th. It is being recorded. And first item is a roll call. And one note, we do need to do roll call voting for any voting items. So we'll have to poll individually and record those individual responses. All right, so anyways, roll call. Let's see, I do see, I'm looking at you, Frank. And Teresa's there. Peter Miller is there. I'd like to welcome our new member.
Yeah.
Ken Lepides. Hey, it is Peter. Ken, are you there?
I'm here.
Welcoming our new member, Ken Lepides, joining us this month. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to, issue a thank you to Mickey Lasky for his 12 years of service to the Conservation Commission. Mickey was our resident proofreader, our mobile patrol bike investigator. Mickey always brought logic and reason to all of his comments and decisions. And really, he was a very valuable member of this commission for 12 years. We'll miss his contribution for sure. So thank you very much, Mickey.
Agreed.
Yep, nicely said.
And was there a new member appointed on Monday?
No, it was not. So we do have an open position still. Next item is minutes from the last meeting. Everybody have a chance to review those minutes? Are there any changes?
I read and have no recommendation for changes. I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second,
It's so moved, so we do need to
Raise our
poll
hands.
individually. Frank? You vote? Yay?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Teresa?
yes.
Peter? Peter
Thumbs-
votes yay?
Do that. Thumbs up.
Yes, he has learned how to use the thumbs up button, yes. I will also vote yay, so that is unanimous. All right, next item is it still Robert Street, Judy?
Yes,
Okay,
you can't see my screen.
No,
no. Do you have a signed RDA?
Yes, it was sent around a week or two ago.
All right, so then all we need to do then is
To
vote on
vote. Yep,
vote on issuing a negative determination. And we discussed a planting plan.
yep, Elaine was going to do the planting plan.
Where do we
Which I
sit?
did, and I sent out to the property owner.
and did you get a response from the property owner, Elaine?
Not yet, no.
Well, I don't know how we could vote on it if
Yeah,
respond.
we cannot.
Well, is the planting is the planting plan a condition of the determination? Is that separate? Do we need?
Was it the only condition we were applying? I can't remember now. It's been a while.
I mean, technically, you can't apply a condition to a negative determination.
True, but there is precedence.
It wasn't a condition, though. The RDA was to remove the trees and install a planting area.
All right, but we don't have an agreement from the property owner yet
That
on
he's going to do, right, right.
How was that agreement going to look? Was he going to just, is it something for him to sign, or how does he accept the planting plan? So I'm just wondering, what's the trigger for our acceptance of the negative, or our issuance of the negative determination?
The acceptance of the planting plan.
Okay.
So
So
could we,
that being said, it would make sense not to vote until we have approval of that planting plan.
or we can do it pending his approval and of the planting plan.
So you're suggesting a vote with a pending his approval
Condition subsequent.
and a legal term?
Yes. But or not, I mean, or we could wait till next meeting, I mean, to do it.
Yeah. Elaine, what would be your suggestion on this?
I would say wait, let me talk to him.
It's true, he may not go for it at all, right?
I sent him a nice list. I had thought he was going to have it ready with the RDA, but clearly he hasn't. So let me contact him again. I don't think there's any rush on it per se. We're still early into the planting season. So let me call him again and roll this over until the next meeting.
Okay,
Sounds
sounds good.
reasonable.
All right, then the next item on the agenda that I have is Locust Ave. Is that correct?
Yes.
DEP 313585. Is that right? Yeah, that's, sorry, it's 582, 313582. All right, so John sent around, or John submitted a new drawing with alterations to Lot 3. Moving the Caltech chambers, pushing the limit of work line towards the front of the house. I don't know if everybody had a chance to review.
John, can you share that that plan?
Sure.
Yeah, and then talk about the changes you have made or suggested.
Thank you.
Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, there were essentially changes on two of the lots. Just lot 2, I don't know if you recall, one of the previous meetings, we had looked at taking the area just to the right of the proposed house and creating a retaining wall along the roadway and bringing that retaining wall closer to the house to kind of create an area, a small area in just to the right of the house that was going to stay basically in its natural state, just to basically reduce the amount of disturbance. That entailed us moving the infiltration units to the front and the rear of the house before they were over on the right side. So that's just, these are changes that we had discussed previously. I just incorporated in this plan. There's also moving to lot 3 based on the discussion and basically the report from Oxbow Associates in terms of looking at lot 3. We took a look at lot 3 as far as creating more of a buffer or a corridor passageway between this wetland and the wetland to the east of the property. So we basically moved the infiltration units closer to the proposed house on lot 3. It was about 10 feet in the rear we were able to move it to give more of a wooded area. And then we also moved the limit of work on the left side of the house between the house and the wetland. Probably about, you know, it varies, but probably about 5 feet closer to the house. So there's a little more additional buffer on that side. And that was kind of in response to, you know, the report from Oxbow.
So it's,
John, quick question for you. The distance from the wetland flag, say, call it flag 7 to the corner where that drill hole mark is, roughly what is the distance from that point now? 50 feet, maybe?
Oh.
Gotta give me a second then. Can't really scale on the screen. It's roughly around 40 feet.
Okay. And that's probably the closest point or thereabouts to the wetland.
Certainly in the back, as you go toward the front of the house, where the infiltration pond is, obviously gets closer to the wetland.
Right. And you said the limit of work line in the rear moved about 10 feet or so?
That moved about 10 feet. I actually have, I'm hoping when I switch you can see this.
I
Oh,
see color.
I did a colored version just to kind of show you the magenta or purple line is the previous limit of work line, and the green line is on the latest revised plan. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much the line moved in the rear and on the side.
That's exactly what we were hoping to see.
right.
It was the before and after. Somebody had a comment? No?
Yeah, looks better.
Yes.
Were there any other changes, John, at all?
No, I did resubmit the entire definitive set just so that it was a complete set of all the sheets. But as far as changes from what the commission's seen previously, those are what we talked about, the only changes.
Could you zoom it back out a little bit so I could see the street also, please? And maybe one more. That's good. Thank you. Roughly, what is the change in elevation from, streetwise, I'm talking, from somewhere around where Lovis starts to curve before Lot 2 to the end of the cul-de-sac where the storm drain is at the very end? What are we talking difference in elevation roughly? I can't see the,
Let me switch over to this.
can't see the spots.
Yeah, so right in here, it's about elevation 212, and down towards the end of the cul-de-sac, it's about 202. So it's about 10 feet.
Okay. Did you consider putting a double catch basin in at the end of that circle?
No, we did not. Looking at the calculations, it looked like a single on either side would have enough capacity. And just want to point out that this roadway slopes from the beginning, where it enters the property down to the cul-de-sac. It's a consistent grade down, and we also have a catch basin at the very end of the cul-de-sac. So if water was to bypass those catch basins, it would just follow along in the gutter line and end up in the catch basin at the end of the cul-de-sac, which is basically the low point for the road.
Right, right. Just concerned in a heavy storm, it may miss those two side catch basins and end up puddling or pooling down at the end.
Yeah, that shouldn't happen. But if for some reason something gets clogged or whatever, that's basically kind of the end point.
So you think most of the flow is going to be captured before it gets to that final catch basin?
I do, yes.
So we won't have a skating rink at the end of it in the winter?
I'm sorry, what about the
We
winter?
won't have a skating rink at the end of the circle in the winter?
No, you should not. Like I said, it's designed to be a low point at the end so that any water, it's also designed to, so we made sure that when we designed this cul-de-sac that water in the cul-de-sac would get carried to the, basically to the gutter lines, to the sides of the cul-de-sac so that it's not going to pool in the middle of the cul-de-sac itself.
Right, the road's gonna crest in the middle slightly.
Yes.
Anybody have any additional questions or comments?
I just have a quick question. John, you said that you submitted a new set of plans? A full set?
Correct. Yeah, I sent a full set. Yeah.
And do you have did you submit a paper copy of that full set of plans?
I did. I dropped off 2 copies outside. There was some bins outside the town hall.
Okay.
2 sets.
And what's the revision date on that? Just so I have it.
Yep. It is. Very jerky. It would be May 7th. 2020.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's all I have.
Anybody else have any questions on the commission?
I'm good.
Do I have any questions from the public?
Frank, I have a quick question. How does it work when there's a new member on the commission as far as bringing him up to speed with everything that's happened?
So the new member will not be voting on this matter simply because they haven't been available to see it through. So the normal procedure would be for that person to abstain their vote.
Okay.
Hey, Bob,
Yes,
Peter, I just want to, just to recap, that at the last meeting, we had sort of arrived at a list of, a list of proposed changes that we thought, that we were favorably inclined to, consider and approve. And I just want to make sure that everyone agrees, and Elaine, that you look this over and we feel that this plan reflects everything that we discussed at the last meeting. I mean, there's no real variation from what we had, where we left off in the last meeting. Sometimes the passage of 2 weeks, I just get a little, I get a little bit fuzzy.
yeah, we all do, Peter. Really, it was the whatever John could do on lot 3, right? That was the
Well, it was lot
request.
2. There was, I guess maybe John, you had offered up changes to lot 2 to provide, and then I think the report indicated that maybe we, that there was additional, that we could make additional headway on lot 3. And okay, all I wanted to do was sort of tie in where we left off to make sure that this is what everyone recalls we had discussed at the last meeting.
Yep, and just to remind everyone, those changes were made as a result of having our consultant review the plans.
Yes.
I think you know what we asked for.
Okay.
Elaine,
just wanna
can you
make sure-
confirm that?
I'm sorry, what?
Can you confirm that?
Yes, I can. I think that this reflects as much as he could do, given the Oxbow report.
Okay, but it's what we discussed. Okay, I just want to make sure there wasn't a slip between cup and lip between what we had hoped to get from the last meeting and what's on this plan now. And that was really I just want to tie those two together.
Yeah, I don't recall if this was addressed, but the initial concern were on lot 3, that those infiltration chambers would have had to be moved to either the front or the side of the house. Those actually remained in the back. Is that right, John?
Yeah, they're, the way the grade is and just the room that we have there, it would have meant filling in that side. And we ended up, probably ending up grading further, towards the wetlands. So
Okay. So,
it seemed to make more sense to reorientate them in the backyard and move them closer to the house to gain some more buffer.
yeah, that was my only concern on how that would look after, but I'm glad you're able to keep them in the back.
Yeah,
Okay.
less invasive to make this modification than to move them on the side.
Yep.
Joe, where do you stand with the other boards right now?
We're still before the planning board. I think we have a couple outstanding issues with them. Most of them they don't really pertain to the, the layout of the road or the lots or, drainage or any of those types of things. So I don't really foresee any real changes to the plan.
What do they have to do with?
It had to do with an agreement with an abutter, in terms of getting some fill. I personally haven't been to the last couple planning board meetings, but I think some of it was more of a legal issue.
Those can be nasty.
What's that?
I was trying to make a joke. I said those can be nasty.
Are you looking to keep this open, John, until those things are resolved?
No, we had a discussion and I think we would like to close this out and move forward with the commission first.
Does anybody have any additional comments, questions, or requests for information? Okay, do I have a motion?
Bob, Steve Purrington, I've
Yes,
got one
please.
quick, I have one quick question for you.
Sure.
In layman's terms, could you tell us if the 25-foot buffer zone is going to remain, or if it does change by lot 3, how many feet is it going to change? Is it going to go to, I don't know, 40 feet, 50 feet, or is it going to remain 25 feet?
In perpetuity or? So,
Bob, I said layman's terms.
so he's increased the buffer on the westerly side of lot 3.
Okay,
So in addition to the 25 no disturb, the no limit of work line has moved closer to the house by about another 5 feet. So we're, what was the number, John? About 43 feet approximately in that corner from the wetland flag. I think, yeah, I think it was 43 is what John had said in that corner where wetland flag 7 is to the corner of the garage. So that limit of work line is there forever. So they cannot go past that limit of work line during construction or post-construction. So that buffer would remain.
okay.
John, could you zoom in on that? I just, because I think what they're what they're probably concerned about is future encroachment. And, what's going to be put down so that, it's not encroached upon later, because, it's natural. Everybody wants to do it. Expand the lawn, push the fence back a little more. What measures do we have in the design to prevent that from happening? Is there a permanent feature? Is there a row of plantings? What's going to physically mark that barrier?
We're not proposing any kind of physical markers out there.
Do you have any suggestions on what we could do? Maybe a post and rail fence or something that will permanently mark that barrier. maybe some, some type of planting. And I'll just open that up for discussion. I'm not sure exactly what would work there, but I think we need something that's a little bit more permanent to make sure that encroachment doesn't occur.
It would be nice to somehow mark that limit of work for future reference, though you don't want to break up, the property and lose that open feeling and that view. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, a fence really wouldn't seem appropriate there unless it is a very open post and rail type fence.
Well, John, are they proposing a fence in that location?
No, there's no fence proposed. And I don't think, based on the grades out there, I think a fence might be kind of difficult to, it'd be on a slope, basically.
Right.
I guess we could look at, I don't want to look at it. I'd like to move forward. We can condition that, some arborvitaes be planted similar to what we're doing on lot 2 along that westerly limit of work line. I mean, as you get towards the front of the house, we're going to have basically the riprap that's part of the grading. So that's going to be a pretty good delineation up to that point, which is pretty much just up to the garage. What maybe makes sense is to from that riprap back towards the rear yard, maybe we propose some plantings along that limit of work.
Or maybe you could put some sort of stone marker or boundary or something in a few places just to demarc, a separation.
Another thing we've done is we've set cement or granite bounds at kind of the angle points of the limit of work, and depending on if the distance, maybe one where it's at, it'd probably start it, like I said, near where the riprap is, and then maybe one halfway along the line, and then one up by where the drill hole is, and potentially one at the next angle point at the rear of the
I kind of like that idea. It's clear, but it blends in, with the features and the topography. But it does give a permanent mark, whereas a tree, somebody could cut down, arborvitae, they can, easily cut down.
What were we saying, some granite markers at the turn points?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's John's suggesting.
Generally we try to, in the wood, kind of on the edge like that, we'll leave them up about 6 inches or so they're, more visible and recoverable.
Right.
Can I just ask, in our order of conditions, do we, when there's a limit of work line, do we normally state that the limit of work line is shown as the plans and there shall be no disturbance past that line? Is that a standard order in our standard order, or if it's not, can we make that clear here?
The standard order, so you're asking if the standard order, one of the conditions is that there shall be no work beyond the limit of work line?
Yes.
Yes, that's in there.
Okay.
But, in 10 years, when this changes hands maybe once or twice, I don't know how in detail the new homeowner is going to be reading the order of conditions, and they won't.
All
So
that came about is that a certificate of compliance was issued. They won't look at the order of conditions.
right.
No, but,
the
we're
limit of
certainly
work
not
line,
driving
our.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Elaine.
The limit of work line isn't the same as the 25-foot no disturb line.
No, it's not.
So the limit of work line is good for the period of construction. If you want to have the 25-foot no disturb line marked, then you probably should do it with the granite markers.
Well, we want to ensure that wildlife corridor, if you will, stays open and doesn't get encroached upon. I mean, we just, we worked hard to get that 10 feet John
Yeah.
did some evaluation.
So Frank, is your point that the limited work line should become, in a sense, the buffer?
It
Is that
should
right?
become the conservation zone, if you will. And I don't know how,
That's
I don't know the
So how do you
best way
feel
to,
about, right? And a post and rail fence, those can come and go as well, right? I mean, are you talking about something that's more like a rock wall or a that's the point you're saying. Your point is that the limited work line, we're hoping that the limited work line that's the edge of a wildlife corridor.
correct, that'll be the edge of disturbance in perpetuity.
Right. Okay.
Well,
Right, I think that's
the no disturb zone will be extended up until the no work. I mean, basically, and John, it sounds like you were amenable to that.
Yeah,
So,
it's just a matter of how, on the ground if you
Right,
want
you
to.
show it, right, you mark it off.
so I'm really talking about behind the infiltration gallery. So that's one area because that's the area where we just fought for 10 feet, or not really fought, but requested 10 feet. That looks like a really easy place to sort of move out, fill in, et cetera. I just want to make sure that gets maintained. And I don't know off the
What
top
is
of my head
that?
the best way.
On the plan, what is shown? There's something there. What is that?
It's just a hail bale and silt fence.
Okay,
That's just the limit of work line right now.
so the question is whether those markers could be back there too, right? Perhaps?
Yeah, you could certainly mark that with stone bounds.
John, do you have any
You need something
recommendations
more
for that?
obvious.
John, what have you seen for something like that? We're just looking for recommendations right now, something to demarcate that.
I mean, I've seen, like I said, concrete bound set in the ground. I've seen, we've done in the past, wooden posts with, some signage on it. So you
They're
just put-
boulders even.
I mean, those are pretty much the two things that I've seen done, other than obviously like a fence or, vegetation, a row of vegetation.
Yeah, I remember someplace we put some boulders spaced apart to create a separation also. I don't remember where that was.
But John, do you want to offer up something, or, you can leave it to us to come up with something as a condition? How do you want to proceed with that?
Elaine, do you have any recommendations?
Well, I tell you, if you want something permanent, don't use wood, use stone. And I recommend the granite or concrete barriers with some kind of signage. That's the most permanent you can get.
So not just a marker, but a barrier. Like I like the large stone idea. That'll definitely do it.
A large stone's
Yeah.
nice. It looks a little more natural, but
There's plenty of ledge
it
out
would
there.
also be good to have something drilled into it to explain why those rocks are there.
Right.
I
So
think we have a few of those markers at the office. They're really designed. They're small and kind of square and more or less designed to sit on top of a 4x4 fence post, but you could use them on something else.
I think that sounds good. Are you comfortable with conditioning that, Elaine, or would you like to see that on the plan?
I have, let's see, the 25, so far this is what I've got tentatively. The 25-foot buffer shall remain in perpetuity and the line shall be marked by granite markers, plural.
Well, I'd like to mark the limit of work line, actually.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
But the limited work line isn't the same as the 25-foot no
I know,
disturb.
but
True.
we're making it that way, Elaine.
Well, then you've got a 50-foot no disturb.
Well, in some places,
Well-
and 30 in others, and But
Right.
what
I
we're
mean, this
saying
is
is we'd
all
like
in
to
lieu-
establish a limit of work line as the permanent demarcation.
Can't you just say
All
as
right,
shown,
then,
as shown on the plan, Elaine?
well, the plan will disappear. What really is going to matter is, in the long run, what's really going to matter is where you set those granite bounds. So if you want to set, I can change this from the 25-foot buffer to, there is a buffer as demarcated by the limit of work line, which shall remain in perpetuity and be marked by granite boulders or by granite markers. I just need
Perfect.
to know where that line is, so we'll know where to put the markers. So the contractor, you know, it probably would be a good idea to put it in the plan. My experience with contractors is that they don't really read as much as the order of conditions, but they do look at the plan. So a minor revision that shows the siltation control line as being the no disturb line to be marked with granite boulders right there on the plan. Then the contractor will know exactly where to put them. We've got it backed up in the order of conditions, and that will remain.
So really, we're talking the west and north sides of the limit of work line. After that, stone riprap.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep, right along, exactly what John just ran the cursor.
Yep. And that'll maintain that extra 10 feet that we just had them revised. So
Right.
I like that.
Good luck trying to
That's
move those
great.
boulders.
Yeah. Okay, John, could we work that into the plan? I think that's the only revision we're going to ask for. I promise. Unless we think of something else.
I mean, is it possible to move forward and close, and I will get you a revised plan showing that?
And we can condition it. We can throw a condition in for that.
Elaine, are you good with that procedurally?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I just clarify? So we're talking about either concrete or stone granite or granite markers set in the ground, or potentially boulders. I just don't want to commit to boulders. I mean, I'm not opposed to that idea, but based on this, probably will be boulders. I think.
But
It'll be
You might have some boulders left over.
I just don't want to,
a marker can just be ignored. You really can't ignore a boulder. I don't know what a marker would do.
well, then you get into how big a boulder, what size.
Something that can't be moved easily.
Right.
You know,
600
the thing
pounds
about a
or
boulder
heavier.
is, the difference between a boulder and a granite post is that people will look at the granite boulders and think they're there naturally. People will look at a granite post, know it is artificial. And if you drill a hole into it and you put a marker on the top of it, there's no mistaking what it is.
Yes, and we've done that before, where we've basically adhered a marker to the top of that, the bound, basically. The stone or concrete bound.
So maybe I'm not in a, what, can you describe to me the dimensions of a bound?
Yeah, I mean, they're typically, they can be anywhere from 3 inches to 5 inches square. And usually for something like this, probably only about 3 feet long. And essentially what happens is you dig a hole, you set it in the ground. Like I said, you leave it up, try to leave it up, say 6 inches or so it doesn't get covered over. And the rest of the 2.5 feet is in the ground. So it's not something that someone's going to come over and, just move. You would have to dig it up. And it's typically what we surveyors use, on the side of the road to mark kind of sideline. I don't know if you've ever seen those in a sidewalk or.
Yeah, I trip over them at night.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm
idea.
worried about here, actually. was that they, if you have it 6 inches above, that's sort of that's a hazard almost.
You could make it taller. I mean, you could make
Yeah, that's
it
what I was
like,
getting.
like a
like
post
I was
that's
thinking
2 or
3
3
foot.
feet above the ground.
Right.
Right,
That's what I was thinking, Elaine.
same here.
I mean, something that's
And
meant
it's
to be
granite.
visible
It
to
looks
someone.
it looks natural. It doesn't look, it's granite, it's a granite stone. It kind of blends in, it's natural looking, it's not offensive looking to the property owner.
And then you would put a little sign on top of that?
Yeah, yeah.
And how many of those would you need in a certain distance?
I think you do one at each turn at a minimum, and then maybe every, I don't know what that is, maybe every 25 feet. Maybe that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, count could probably be somewhere between 8 and 10. Just really quick.
Okay.
Mhm. Well, that's good.
What do you think about that idea, John?
That's fine.
Good. I'm happy we're doing this because I'm happy that it will turn what our consultant had discussed into something that's lasting and tangible. So I like that. I'm really happy.
And I'm sorry, what did you say? How high will it be, John?
I mean, typically in a situation like this, we'll set them about 6 inches high. Maybe we can set them higher.
I think we need higher.
Okay.
Yeah. I think 6 inches. I think actually that is a huge hazard. Kids running.
Could be an attractive nuisance even.
Yeah. No, but I think, yeah. And I know that means that you're looking at like a 6 foot, because you're going to need to go below the frost line, right, John? So you're looking at, having to get 3 feet above the ground, you got to go 3 feet below as well.
Yeah, and we should talk about what's on that sign too, because one thing I don't want to see is that's a very, it's a convenient place to throw leaves and stuff, instead of, taking them off site. And, if you bring leaves back there and you throw them back there, they're going right down the slope into the wetland. So, maybe a sign that says no, and I don't know if there's precedence on this, or Elaine, if you have an idea, but something that says, conservation, no, no grass clippings or leaves. I don't know what the signage would be, but I'm just thinking out loud.
Elaine, what does the standard sign say?
The sign we have in the office, the square metal signs we have in the office, say something to the effect of wildlife area. The only problem with that is people think that their leaves and their brush is natural, so there's
Right.
no problem with putting it back there. They might not throw trash back there, but they figure, well, it's just leaves, it's just branches, there's no problem with this. And I'm
Wildlife
I'd
area, I
have to
think,
get
works.
another sign made up if we were going to change what we have now.
Wildlife area works.
John, what's been your experience in a case like this from a signage standpoint?
I mean, the one that I can think of is in Reading, and I'm trying to remember what it said. It was more in the lines of, wetlands protection area, or I'd have to go back and look. I don't know what type of sign would be more, would be better for discouraging people from doing anything. A lot of times these markers are there just so that it's out there. If people are encroaching, certainly the commission gives you a very good reference. You can say, hey, wait a minute, the marker's over here, and you have activity or leaves or whatever over here. It's
No
pretty hard to
disturbance might work. Sorry,
Yeah.
John, I thought you were finished.
You could do that
Just
too.
no disturbance.
As far as the
Covers it
height
all.
of it, I think the idea of these is not to, stand out and be kind of an eyesore. It's something that you want it high enough so that you can easily find it and recover it and see it, but you don't want it, someone from the street isn't gonna see it. So I don't think you'd really want to set them much more than a foot above. And, these bounds, typically the largest ones you can get that I know of are 5 feet in length.
How many feet?
That's a pretty big bound, and that's a lot of work to
How
set.
many feet, Peter? I'm sorry, we didn't hear you.
Sean?
5 feet long, from
John.
the top to the bottom.
And that would put you 2 feet above ground. Is that right?
And you could do that.
Okay.
I mean, I think that would work.
So I'm sorry, 2 feet high and then how?
No, it's just that the pole it's a 5 foot long pole, but you have to put 3 feet of it below ground to get below the frost line. So only
Okay.
2 feet protrude above.
2 feet above.
I like that. That's reasonable. And a sign affixed to it? Is that what we said? We decided upon?
Yes.
Okay.
And who's going to produce the signs?
Let me see what I have at the office.
Okay.
Elaine,
Let
do
me
you use
see where we
anything?
ordered it from.
Okay, but those are details that
Yeah.
I mean, John, you're generally amenable to having, if the condition would have granite posts that, at sensible intervals that would stick at 2 feet up out of the ground, and that then there would be a few signs, indicating their significance. Is that fair? That you would that would be something that you would be agreeable to?
Yeah, and like I said, typically what we've done is adhere whatever the signage, to the top, the actual top of the
But-
granite
Yeah,
post.
I would like to get that onto the plan, like Elaine said, because contractors don't go back and read the order.
And just so I have it in the order, how many feet apart did we decide each one of these markers should be?
I think we said at every turn, and then a minimum of 8 to 10 feet. Is that right, John?
That's pretty close. No, 8 to 10 feet is pretty close together. No, I said there's probably about 8 to 10 total markers.
Yeah, I can
Oh,
see
okay.
like 20 feet or
Yeah,
something,
that's
like
what I-
25
In
feet.
fairness, I
Yeah.
heard you say that.
I mean, I initially said 25. I don't know if 25 might be good, or maybe 20.
Yeah, all right, 20. I think 20 feet is probably reasonable, and at the angle points, where there's a change in direction of the line.
Right.
Okay, I've got it.
All right.
So are we ready to close the public hearing?
So that'll be a condition we add. But John, you can still submit a new drawing, right, with those shown?
Yeah, I can submit a revised plan. It just updates the location of the markers.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And will you specify what the markers are too?
I'm sorry?
Can you put a specification on the plan saying how big the markers will be?
Yeah, I'll specify how long they are and a minimum of 2 feet exposed.
Great.
All right. And we're good with wildlife area, right, on the sign? I don't want to bang this into the ground. No pun intended.
Okay, I have,
But,
yeah, I think that's better than wetlands protection area, wildlife area. It's easier to put on the sign. I like that
Yeah.
better.
Elaine, do you guys have signage in Winchester for situations like this?
No, we don't.
No signs?
No signs. No, we don't.
Too unsightly.
Yeah.
No,
Doesn't
but it's
pass
a
their
good
sign
idea.
bylaw.
It's a good idea.
It
I
is.
like it. I may order some for Winchester. I like this idea. We have dumping problems on conservation land. If you put wildlife area there, people see it differently because everybody likes wildlife.
Unless it's in their backyard.
Exactly. Until it eats your garden, right?
Unless you're in Australia, everything can kill you.
Everything okay.
Oh, I have a few comments if I may.
Sure.
I can't help but notice that the tone of this has really changed. And we kind of went from a commission that had a lot of questions because there were a lot of uncertainties. We brought in a consultant, and now it seems that the tone of this has entirely changed. And I'd like a little clarification with Luciani ousted and Nikki Lasky resigning. It's just I'm sorry. I can't help but notice that
The consultant recommended 600 feet.
it's just, yeah, everything the consultant has said has kind of gone out the window, and now we're talking about signage. We went from issues with canopy, issues with the 25-foot buffer zone to we've just kind of dismissed all of this.
Well, no, we hired a consultant and we reviewed the report last meeting.
Yeah, were you at the last meeting? I'm sorry, John, were you at the
Yeah.
last meeting?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
The
And-
consultant recommended 600 feet.
And I'm sorry, and the reason that I asked that is because that we kind of went through the last meeting, and with the consultant, we worked through, and we kind of arrived at we arrived at some tangible improvements that he had recommended, and opportunities to improve the situation that he had recommended. And I guess if you're sensing a different tone at this meeting, I thought that we had made a lot of headway at the last meeting, and we were turn some general concepts of the last meeting into something that's more specific that we could go on to approve.
Well,
And-
Peter, I remember he threw out that 600-foot number, which he did a great job explaining. That was in a perfect world. That and I'm a realist. I get that, but
We left it as John was going to revise some plans and
from what I see, the revision is what
I
it's minimal. It's nothing. It's right.
it's a line of work limit, not a construction limit or.
Well, limit of work is a construction limit. It cannot go any further than that line.
Right. And we tried to change that limit of work line into a more permanent line, which
Right.
probably would turn into our, admittedly long discussion about signs. But I think, I think it's an improvement. I mean, we have a 25-foot buffer policy, and we went through this before. That's based on an average site near wetlands, and they gave us that. And our question to the consultant was, is that 25-foot buffer enough? And he said, well, I'd like to see 600 feet, but we can only really enforce what the Wetlands Protection Act says. And he couldn't point to any quantitative analysis that says, well, you don't have much to gain by doing this. And he kind of agreed that 25 foot was offering good protection, and then he offered the additional effect on wildlife, saying that additional width of the corridor would actually encourage more movement between the two wetlands. And we picked up on that, and again, trying to make that limit of work not just a limit of work, but a more permanent wildlife corridor for amphibians and going back and forth between the two wetlands. So
I thought it was said many a times in these meetings that the rule was 25 feet, but there were exceptions under extenuating circumstances. I mean, Peter, you've said that a million times. Am I wrong? That there were extenuating circumstances within this project. That's why we arrived at getting a consultant, because this was outside the realm of a normal,
We're taking down
Right.
hundreds of trees on Forest Street.
We brought all these concerns. That's why we landed it. That's why we got to where we got. And now it just seems it's kind of all been dismissed.
If I can also add to, based on what Oxbow said, he was talking about whether or not it could be certified as a vernal pool. He said something about the volume of the peepers and the frogs and this, that, and the other thing. And he said, granted, we did it in the middle of the afternoon. And if we were to go there at a different time or during the evening, that perhaps the volume would be more significant. And let me tell you, I mean, if you lived up here, you'd know the
Oh,
volume is
definitely.
incredibly significant.
Yeah, his comment was not robust enough.
Right, but if he
Sure,
came
no,
back
yeah.
here early evening as opposed to in the middle of the afternoon, perhaps it, at that point in time, would be robust enough. Also, I mean, I read over some of the things about how to certify something as a vernal pool, or even if it's not a certified vernal pool, things that they look at. And there's so many things that Scott talked about that we fall into. And beyond that, though, in talking about putting these granite markers up or putting signs up, et cetera, is there any reason why some of these things can't be made into deed restrictions? So that they're right on the deeds that go to these individual owners of these houses, so that they know, as a matter, you know, something that's going to run in perpetuity with their deed, that's going to run with the land, that they can't go dumping things behind their house. They can't go beyond these lines, as opposed to just putting signs up on these granite posts.
So the order of conditions is recorded at the Registry of Deeds.
I know that. But to put a further restriction on the deeds that states, you know, you may be the owner of this land up to such and such a point. Here's the meets and bounds of your property. However, you know, in addition to the order conditions, the following items will remain as conditions that will run with the restrictions on the land that will run in perpetuity.
So our standard order of conditions does have conditions that do run in perpetuity.
Okay.
I forget how many. Elaine, do you remember how many of them run in perpetuity?
Not off the top of my head, but about maybe less than half a dozen, no more than that.
You know, because you can have signs up, but that doesn't mean that people aren't going to start dumping their grass clippings or this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah, I mean, that always is an issue.
Markers. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said that it is always a potential issue of homeowners, you know, dumping, or others dumping, you know, trucks at night or whatever, pulling in and dumping. And,
Right.
you know, we see it all around town.
And the way
In
we
this case, it'd
find
be a
that
little
out
more difficult because that
is
area is on the west and north of the property.
Mm-hmm.
And we find
So-
that out by neighbors telling us, and then we issue cease and desist orders. So
That's usually how we find out, is a neighbor calling us.
But if you put the restrictions right in the deed, they're on notice. People can take signs down. People can ignore signs, but if it's something that's listed in the deed, it just may be one additional protection. It's, you know, it's that, so it's my questions have to do with deed restrictions on top of the order of conditions. And then in addition, certain things that Scott did point out in the last meeting that, at least in my opinion, could require additional testing insofar as the items that he pointed out. Specifically, you know, he had pictures showing that there were eggs or larvae of some of these obligate species. And so we're talking about moving something 10 feet, but is that really going to protect enough? And he was talking about protecting the upland areas as well as the wetlands themselves. You know, and he did get into a lot of discussion having to do with taking down the trees and how many trees were coming down, and, you know, understanding that it's not going to go 600 feet, which was what his nirvana was.
Yeah, in an ideal situation, the property would remain undeveloped.
Right.
We are bound by,
Which none of us has, that hasn't been the argument since day one. I have not been here for 11 months to stop this project. I don't think that's been the argument of any of us. I cannot believe the tone of this commission with the removal of one commissioner and the resignation of another, this has gone in a completely different direction. Completely different direction. And I'm sorry if I'm, it is what it is, but
I think you're correlating the departure of those two commissioners, against the consultant who reviewed his findings at the last meeting.
sure.
I mean, that's really the biggest difference for us right now is getting that report, hearing the consultants, recommendations and project review. Now, it probably is a vernal pool. He couldn't prove it at the time. We have a number of them around town that have not been certified, but there's probably a good chance it is. How does that change anything? Well, it really doesn't change much. If it was certified or not, it would be nice to have it certified.
Bob, what have we said since day one? For the last 11 months, we have sat at every one of these meetings. It's not stop this. It's not this can't happen. It's let's do it right. Let's do it right. Let's do it with minimal effect. And I know Steve said it. He said it well. How do we do this and do it without ripping down every single tree? Without.
And one of the things
That
that
is entirely changed.
he did say was, he said that the plans do not include the edge habitat. Therefore, the invasive species could develop and spread into the wetlands. And he said, need construction monitoring and report to the Conservation Commission. And then there was a question having to do with herbicides, whether or not any of the homeowners would use herbicide.
I have, to that end, if I may, I have from our meeting on February 24th, about 7 orders that I haven't really brought up yet because we were still dealing with the granite posts, but maybe this would be a good time to bring that up, Bob.
Sure.
Okay, so here's what I had from February. There was a snow storage plan. And so we haven't really gotten into that yet, but there was some concern about where the snow would be stored. There was an order of conditions regarding a monitor on site to oversee adherence to the plan during the course of construction. Stormwater prevention and pollution plan to be submitted prior to the commencement of construction. There was tree replacement calculation shall be submitted prior to the commencement of work. We've got that, so that's what I had from February. We do have that wider wildlife corridor now that the limit of work has been set back. So am I correct in understanding that as part of the order, you would like to see that vernal pool certified?
I would. I think based on the meetings that the issue that this has come up in 2009, it came up in 2000, and with every developer that comes along, and it's never been certified, and yet I think we all have a feeling that it probably is.
Elaine, what would it take for us to have Scott go back out and see if he can certify it again?
He probably should get out there early while there's still the spring peepers. And there's still a period of time where you can find egg masses. If you wait too long, of course, a vernal pool dries up because it's a spring pool. So you would want to, you'd want to request that it happen right away, maybe even prior to construction. And there's a whole protocol that the state has, which Scott is very familiar with. They specialize in amphibians at Oxbow. to do the vernal pool procedure.
I want to do it.
What would that take, a day approximately?
You know, if he goes out and he finds evidence of egg masses, and there's a couple of different criteria you can use. One of them is literally decibels, how loudly those spring peepers are singing. The other is egg masses. Sometimes what I've seen them do is go in and find caddisfly larvae, which they can go in and take a small net and find it in there. So if it's a little off season, they find evidence of the caddisfly larvae castings. But that's the standards by which this is done. And you may find like an obligate species, you may find some facultative species there. But the key, I think, is to go out when you're most likely to find them.
Right.
He probably could have found them the day he was out there if he had waited a little bit longer.
Right, I agree. Because I believe he did find some obligate species. And he did find
Okay.
some masses.
If I could add my, a comment. I have, in the past, this spring, found 2 salamanders inside the ductwork of my irrigation system. And somehow they got in there, and I didn't disturb them. I let them be, but that's a good distance from the wetlands up to my log cabin into the irrigation system. And lo and behold, I popped the cover, and I found 2 of them. So there's some activity going on, some real positive activity going on in the swamp, in the wetlands, and I just want to make you aware of that. And
You know, there's
somebody would
another
like to come up
possibility.
and check out the location of my irrigation boxes, they're welcome to do so. It's truth. It happened, and I was surprised as anybody. Okay.
I've had salamanders
Okay.
in my basement.
Yeah, we do know they're out there, and we know the peepers are out there, the tree frogs are out there.
Elaine, what was your suggestion?
My suggestion is, to make it more flexible, is if it can't be done right away for one reason or another, if you do make it a part of the order of conditions, then it has to be done prior to the certificate of compliance. So if you don't do it prior to the commencement of work, you make it a condition of the order and a condition of receiving a certificate of compliance. So if you don't get it this season, you don't lose it, because my guess is that this subdivision is not going to be completed before next spring, or they won't be coming back for a certificate of compliance before next spring. I don't see them come. I mean, subdivisions take longer than simply one building season. So my guess is that this would roll over until next spring. So it would give you 2 seasons, 2 springs to look for a vernal pool if that's what you decide you want to do.
I mean,
And if they can't validate it, then what? How do you condition something that is,
Yeah.
possible but not?
Well, then
Yeah.
you have a report. So you get somebody who is experienced in finding vernal pools that are of the level that can be protected by state law. And at the end of it, you get a report. You either get a report that says this is a vernal pool, or you get a report that says, I've examined this, and according to the standards under state law, this is does not qualify as a state protected vernal pool. But it also means that you trust your consultant to do a job that is a high quality job. And I don't think you can find anybody better than Oxbow should you decide to go with Oxbow. That's what they specialize in.
Elaine, is that our consultant paid for by the applicant, or how does that work?
Either the Conservation Commission can pay for it or the applicant can pay for it. The question of payment is a different issue from finding whether or not there's a vernal pool.
Right.
That depends on who is willing to bear the cost.
I believe that at the meeting when it was determined that that there should be a consultant, that Mr. Luciani said that this was important enough that in his opinion, that the Conservation Commission or the town of Wakefield would pay for the consultant.
Yeah, which we did.
Right. But, you know, he does, and the Oxbow report does show spotted salamander egg masses.
Right, we know they're out there. I mean, I think it's a vernal pool. I was surprised he wasn't able to certify it,
Yeah,
but he wasn't. What does that change, Elaine, for us? Even if it is a certified vernal pool, what actually changes, or what further criteria would that be putting on the project?
I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest.
Can I jump in here? You know, that's what I'm listening to all this, and I'm trying to figure out what this exercise is in terms of, okay, so that we certify the vernal pool.
It doesn't give you greater setbacks.
Right, it doesn't change anything other than you have it certified.
If a notice of intent is filed prior to certification of the vernal pool, the fact that it becomes a certified vernal pool has no bearing on it because the NOI has already been filed. So all this discussion about even if Oxbow would come back and certify it, it would have no bearing on what has been previously submitted.
Right, that was my
Two,
thought.
the areas that were found or where they heard the frogs and such peepers, they were pretty far removed from our activity.
Right. So you would protect the vernal pool, but I don't think it's going to increase the amount of setback from that vernal pool, which means that it wouldn't increase this, it wouldn't require the houses to be further set back than they already are, or the limit of work line to be set back further than it already is.
Correct.
Right, right.
So kind of, what I'm getting at is going and getting it certified. That's fine if that's something that the commission is interested in doing, then that's fine. But I don't see where, in terms of this project, where we're at, it really has much bearing on, you know, if it was a certified vernal pool that was somewhere outside of or at the edge of the wetlands. I mean, all this activity is contained within the wetlands as far as, you know, what I saw from Oxbow.
Well, they may get additional protection under state law if they're certified, if it's a certified vernal pool.
There is a 100-foot buffer, but again, because this has already been filed prior to any certification, it does not apply to this project.
But it gives the Conservation Commission further discretion.
For the next project.
Correct.
Yeah, if something would happen on the other side, you know, the west side or the, yeah, it'd have to be the west side, I guess.
Or if there were to be any requests for revisions, we would know that that would be out there.
But I still don't, based on what Oxbow has presented, again, all these, everything that they found, egg masses and such, was far in the northwest corner of the property. Actually, some of it was off of the property. It wasn't even on this property. So I don't know, even if that's the case, what bearing that would have on this project.
If the commission decides it wants to go forward with certifying this as a vernal pool, then, and the commission decides that it wishes to pay for it, that an order of conditions, that an order would be in the conditions that would require the property owner to allow the Conservation Commission onto the property to make the determination.
Yeah, I think that, I don't think we would have a problem with that.
Yeah, I like that, Elaine, and that doesn't tie us to actually performing that, but it would be a good means if we do elect to go forward and do that. It would give us the permission to do that. That makes
So
sense.
we wouldn't be locked
Although-
out. We'd be able to
do-
get on there and take a
Well,
look at it.
Do we need permission to actually do that? I mean,
We have permission, under the order of conditions, we have permission to enter the property, but we really have permission to enter the property for determining whether or not they are complying with the order of conditions. But this particular order of conditions, without giving us permission to search for a vernal pool, doesn't include that.
can we
So
access the wetland area without going onto these properties?
Yeah.
And do a similar type assessment of the vernal pool? We don't need permission from those owners of the new development potentially to go and do that assessment, do we? We could do that on our own. We don't need to.
Well, you can enter you can enter the wetland area from other places, not on the property.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking. So
You're welcome to enter from my property.
you could, but it just seems to me that should you get someone, the idea, should you get someone who wishes to contest it, that person could well say, you have permission to protect that wetlands from construction debris, from filling. But that's all you have permission to do. I would just, if you want to go forward with this, I would like to make it clear that your permission is more than just to stand at the edge of it to make sure they haven't thrown
What's
construction.
the harm in putting it in, Frank? I mean, John already said that would be fine to put in.
yeah,
So
that's fine. It just seems redundant. I think we could do that work without permission to do that.
I think we put it in because if we're on,
Then you don't have to fight about it.
right, you want someone else's property, you want to put it in.
Okay. I've never seen anything like that, but that's fine.
I've never seen a condition certifying a vernal pool, so.
And what if it can't be certified? Then what happens to that condition?
Well, again, it's just site access. That's what the condition says.
Yeah,
It
just
has
site
nothing to do with certifying the vernal pool.
Right.
Okay, so it has to be very clear.
Right.
And then we'll have that information for the future. And the town will have that information for the future. If we decide to go ahead with it.
Okay. Good suggestion.
Okay, I've got it. Oh. Well, here's how it would read if you wish to discuss it. Property owner shall allow the Conservation Commission or its consultant to enter the wetland area for the purpose of determining the existence of a vernal pool.
Pretty straightforward.
Right, and having it certified as a vernal pool, assuming it were, and maybe it will be and maybe it won't. I mean, it also gives rise to all these other possible state regulations, including the forest cutting regulations. And one of the things that Scott did talk about was talking about that upland of the wetlands was just as important in terms of these wildlife corridors. So it's information. Okay, it may prove nothing, and it may prove something, but it's information for this commission and for those of us, who live here, as well as for the developer.
Right, true, exactly.
So, again, as John Tedisco said, it's not to shut everything down. It's to say, all right, we have this resource here and we need to protect it for whatever it is. Because once the development is done, if we don't look into this, it's done and the barn has been locked.
Yeah, so we will include a condition, like Elaine just mentioned. We had talked about vernal pool possibilities before, a number of times, so that will be added.
Okay.
That will be, I believe, the first Wakefield vernal pool. Is that correct? I don't think we have a certified vernal pool in Wakefield.
Really?
There's one
Not
off
sure about that. We
Montrose
had somebody, Judy, do you know the answer to that? I know it's somebody looking a few years
Yeah.
ago.
There's one off Montrose Ave by
Okay.
We have
the,
one.
Yeah,
the power station.
and I guarantee you the bog and wet meadow behind my house is also, that abuts town forest.
Right.
I mean, if I open the window right now, you wouldn't hear me because of the peepers.
Exactly. That was, they've been very loud here too.
And they're probably not as loud now as they were a few weeks ago.
Yeah, you're right.
It's getting late. All right, so we addressed that. Any more comments or questions?
Yeah, I just want to address John's comment, because I know he said he saw a noted change in the tone of the meeting. And, I just want to say that, if it was up to me personally, and, and I could see where you're coming from. I mean, I'd say, let's take the recommendation and put a 600-foot buffer in there. But, we're doing as much as we can within the regulation to protect the
Absolutely.
well.
I understand that.
I don't think my tone has changed a bit since we started this. I'm often on the other side of the table on behalf of my clients, and I understand the regulations, and I obviously, this is my town. I want to see max protection, and I want to see the wetlands preserved. They provide a value, they provide habitat, and I think I think we've gotten a lot since the original application. It's not as much as I would have liked. I think it's a good compromise on what we can actually request and improve with science. We engage a consultant who knows more than we do to help us out with our assessment. And if you could think of something we didn't do or could have done more, or something you think Jimmy had suggested that we didn't follow through on, this is the opportunity to bring that forward.
No, I think the consultant was great, and obviously the consultant is going to make comments like he did with with respect to the 600-foot, and he was a realist. I get it. In a perfect world, yeah, right. None of this happens. It's undeveloped land, but I think John Ogren, I think you would agree that of anyone here that this process has gone out how long? Very long. Would you agree? Well,
That's why
longer than most, right? Or longer than all.
when you made the comment about the tone has changed, part of it is it's been a long process. And
Yes, it has.
we're getting to the point either something's got to break.
Right. But it's
So
been a
that-
long process
that's
for,
part of it.
it's been a long, but most of these processes are, people come before the commission and they say what they want to do, and it's more or less pretty cut and dry, and we make a decision. But this came before the board, and there were a lot of questions, and there were a lot of questions that the commission couldn't answer. So the time frame stretched out. And then the decision was made to bring a consultant in. And so this is completely different than, am I wrong in saying that most of the issues that come before the commission to do this this is different.
And that's why we brought the consultant in to help us out.
Right. And I wish we had done it a little bit earlier in the process. One thing we did to John, in his fairness, is we sent him back to the drawing board a number of times for different things. And, he stuck with us and didn't kill any of us yet anyway. But
Not yet anyway, yeah.
that's a frustrating process. But a lot of it is because of the sensitivity of the project. I mean, we understand that this isn't a 12-foot by 12-foot deck going on the back of a house. This is a
Exactly.
significant development. So, we tried to use as much caution as we could in making sure that we were, going in compliance with the Wetlands Protection Act, which is what our mission is to do.
Frank, my point is that because this particular project has dragged on so long, okay? And all these questions have been raised, and everything has been at a standstill. Nothing's been approved. Everything, this is going on week after week after week with a consultant now. And now with the dismissal of Luciani and the resignation of Lasky, how could you not, how can this not all tie together? I mean, I'm sorry, but it just, there's,
I think you're drawing a conclusion where there isn't one.
I hope not.
You know, I think
I hope not.
we're all here to serve the town. And some of us have been on this commission for a long time.
Mhm.
I've been here 20 years.
Yep.
You know, we had a consultant that gave us some opinions. That clarified a lot of things for us that we had question marks on. That is really what's happened in the last few weeks, is paying for a consultant, getting his professional opinion.
Mhm.
And the consultant was the one last time that you know, brought to our attention. Our focus was heavily on lot 2, where, and I understand, John Ogren, your sensitivities to that, because that was, you know, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for you to give there. And he said that he brought something to our attention, that we were not focusing enough on lot 3. And that there was opportunity to make a significant improvement by the change we made on lot 3. And that was I thought the most important thing that came out of the meeting. John Ogren, you realize, you know, it was our consensus that there was something that was actually something that was achievable from your end that actually made a material difference. John, just to what was the extent of, I mean, right now is, I guess, I get John mixed up. John Tedisco, you're saying that the change that was made to lot 3 was not significant, but I guess, can we just talk about that? Because I thought the change was that we're talking about making a wildlife area, which means it's going to be undeveloped, you know, starting at the limit of work line. And that was not at all discussed until the last meeting. And my sense is that actually is something that is a material improvement to this project. And maybe I'm wrong. And John Tedisco, you're suggesting that that's really, And I'd like to talk about it, because maybe you're right. And maybe
Perhaps we should. Maybe I misinterpreted it.
No, but let's talk about it.
So that's something we've never even asked
I
for
understand
before.
what that, because to me, when we had that I thought we had a very constructive meeting, the last meeting, and I thought that we seemed like we were very, that we had, we were moving toward consensus on how this should be. And that's why this meeting seemed like it was relatively light lifting. But John Ogren, can we just talk about, I mean, just so you know, John Tedisco, I want to hear too, is the change that was made to lot 3, is it sort of meh, or is it actually material? Is when taking into account that we're going to turn this into a wildlife corridor, which means it's going to be undeveloped from those granite posts back to the lot line.
Well, yeah, I think it's significant in the sense that, 10 feet, maybe it doesn't sound like a lot. In terms of actual area of forest, the length of it's probably over 100 feet. So you're talking about 1,000 square feet that is now not going to be disturbed. And that's, and then also the area on the westerly side or between the house on lot 3 and the wetland. And I don't know whether it comes down to what's enough or what's a lot, or as the consultant said, it was anywhere from 0 feet to 600 feet is really what we're talking about, and you need to find some kind of compromise in there that allows the project to go forward, that's still under the state Wetlands Protection Act. As far as this, I want to go back to the regulations in the sense that the Conservation Commission has jurisdiction over the 100 feet, the 100-foot buffer from the wetlands. They have jurisdiction over it. It means they have jurisdiction over what happens in that area, but it doesn't give them the ability to exclude activities in that.
I understand, but I just want to focus on what it means. So am I right that what you're saying is bottom line is that is going to turn 1,000 square feet the upshot of that lot 3 change is it's gonna pull 1,000 feet into the, turn it into conservation area. Is that the answer to the, I just want to answer John Badisco's question, because you were saying, is it more meh, or is it just sort of, is it small change, or is it something real? And that's what you're asking, and I want to hear too. 1,000 feet, is that, 1,000 square feet?
If we were losing 1,000 square feet, versus gaining it,
Okay,
it's not
no,
that situation.
I just want to have a candid conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
you raised it, and I want to.
Part of the conversation is that we had already provided, I forget, it's probably about 60 feet of undisturbed forest between our subdivision and abutting properties.
So now that means that it goes. So wait. So that means that you have 70 feet now. Is that what you're saying? Is that now we go from? I just want to be responsive to the what's been brought up here, because I thought that we had done something that was quite material in the last meeting, and that was what was giving me a warm and fuzzy feeling here. And
What has specifically changed with respect to lot 3? I'm with you, Peter. I don't understand.
We moved the limit of work line closer to the house along that northerly edge. And we've talked about establishing a permanent boundary on the north and west side of that property to the property owners, so they know not to encroach past those points. That is something that we've probably never really done before, is put a hard bound at the limit of work line of a property.
Right, and whether or not personally, I think it's important. We had a consultant who identified that as an important wildlife corridor connecting two wetlands. So, I understood when he said it, but, it seemed like it had a lot of value.
Right. It's just more passageway potentially for any wildlife, and more of a buffer.
Any other questions?
What about those other issues? The snow storage, for example.
Do we have a snow storage plan, John?
No, we do not. I recall there was a comment about the snow storage in terms of the roadway. I think, Bob, you had brought that up. And in this case, there's no sidewalks being proposed on this. So we have quite a large grass strip on the edge of the road. So there's plenty of room in terms of storage within the right of way.
Okay. So that doesn't need, so that's covered by the plan. It doesn't need a separate order? I got that right?
What would the order say, Elaine? Would say that the snow will repeat what John just said, that the snow will be on the side of the cul-de-sac? John, is that what you said?
I'm saying the street, snow getting plowed in the street, there's physically enough land area there between basically the curbing and the sideline of the road for storage of snow.
All right. So we don't have to worry about it making its way into the wetlands.
Correct.
What's going to happen is the landscapers or plow drivers will, push it when they get to the cul-de-sac. They're going to push it up over the curb at the end.
Right.
Around that perimeter. That's what happens. They're not going to keep sweeping around the cul-de-sac and pull it back out.
So what's at the end of the cul-de-sac?
There is a,
Just the end of the road, basically.
yeah, in the catch basin.
The catch basin, and then on the other side of the guardrail? The wetland isn't on the other side of the guardrail, is it?
No, you've got that, near lot 2, you've got that 50 feet or so with the retaining wall.
Okay, so we're good then.
Yeah,
You don't have
you
to
get the
worry
house
about-
and you get 50
alright.
feet of buffer.
All right. So let me see what else I have here. This was a recommendation from the town engineer. There should be a monitor on site to see it, to oversee adherence to plans. I believe that's probably within the same conditions that are put on by the planning board, but it's at the recommendation of the town engineer if we want to put it on both ours and theirs.
Yeah,
I
that would
think
be,
you should.
that would be recommended.
Okay. A SWIP plan to be submitted prior to the commencement of construction.
A what plan, Elaine?
A SWIP, stormwater prevention and pollution plan.
Yeah, the DPW requires that.
Yeah, we submitted and we submitted to the commission too, a draft of that.
Okay. So I should just say a final SWIP plan.
Yeah. As I said, on a SWIP, it's really, for construction, so
Right.
there's information in there that we don't have yet, like contractor and completion date and all that.
And then the next one I have is the tree replacement calculations shall be submitted prior to the commencement of work. Where do we stand on that?
I'm sorry, the tree what?
The tree replacement calculations.
Well, I had submitted to the commission an email that stated what the total linear feet of trees were to be replaced.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I remember that. I forget the number, but I do remember seeing that.
All right, forgive me. Problem of working remotely, things get a little hazy. I'm not. So we have that information already.
We do.
Elaine, I think we got that at our February 13th meeting.
Okay,
I have
got
a
it.
number of 6,355. I don't know if that's the latest, but, and it's across 124 trees.
Right, 124. I do remember
Okay,
that.
thank you. Okay. And that's what I had. That's all I have from the February meeting.
All right, is there any other information we'd be looking for? I cannot think of anything.
Nor can I.
Frank, Teresa, or Peter, you have any other information you can think of we'd be looking for at this point?
I don't have anything else.
I got nothing.
Is
Peter,
there an
any more-
operation maintenance plan for the Caltech chambers or storm scepter?
Yes, that was submitted too, for the storm scepter and the infiltration basin.
Okay,
That was all submitted when we were going back and forth with that.
right. Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion to close the hearing?
I'll do it. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Any second?
Second.
All right, again, we do need to poll individually. Frank,
You gotta buzz on.
Teresa,
Yes.
Can you do
I
chat?
do see Peter voting. Yes.
I'm learning.
You know what? I never saw, all right, Nini's not here. And so I'd be the fourth vote, voting yay to close the public hearing. Okay. We're closed.
Hello. Hey, I told you.
Okay.
They're
Hello?
closing. Yeah. Can you scoot over?
Hello?
Hello,
Yes.
yes. My name's Jennifer Fanning. I'm at 4 Pheasantwood. We were on the agenda for the meeting today.
But you still are. We're running behind.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
I won't go too far.
Mhm.
All right, so we need to move on to Salem Street, 610 Salem.
Hey, Bob, just a quick clarification. We'll vote on the conditions at the next meeting.
Yes,
We'll develop and vote on those.
correct.
One question I have is, do we want to bring in our consultant to discuss our conditions and have him opine on them? And do we
I
have
think-
that opportunity?
I think that's a good suggestion. Elaine, there's no problem with us doing that, right?
No, no problem. And, you know, at the same time, I call Scott Smyers, I can ask him about this, and I can ask him about the vernal pool at the same time. And then, as long as I'm on, I just wanted to mention to the abutters that if you were to give me a call in, let's say, 60 days, and I would be able to tell you where we stood on the vernal pool, and if they, I could get you a copy of the vernal pool report, and if it is approved by the state, I could get you a copy of that too if you wanted to call the conservation office.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. All right, so moving on to 610 Salem Street, 313-585. John, is that you also?
Yes, I'm standing in for that also. But as I understand it, essentially the commission was happy with changes that have been made to the site plan. It had needed to go through approval through the engineering department in terms of the stormwater management. For many reasons, it's taken a while to get a response back from them, but I believe engineering department is now satisfied. There should have been a letter sent out, I believe it was sent out today from Eric Sherman, basically stating that they were all set with in terms of the stormwater management.
Correct. We did receive that letter today. And there were, I do believe there were no outstanding issues.
They asked for two conditions to be in our order of conditions, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we've been all set with this for, I can't even remember when, 3, 4, 5 months maybe. It's been so long, I'm forgetting, some of the issues. Is there anything, there's nothing we're looking for at this point, is there, Judy or Elaine or anybody else?
No, it was just the DPW review, engineering review.
Okay. And we're satisfied with their comments. And they did say to add 2 conditions, right? All right, so there's really nothing further to discuss about 610 water then, right?
Salem.
Salem, sorry.
It does have a lot of water though.
Yeah, yes, it does. Would somebody like to make a motion to close that?
So motion to close the public hearing?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, polling individually. Frank?
Yay.
Yay. Teresa?
Yay.
Peter?
Yay.
And yay for me. All right, that hearing is closed. So John, I guess we're all set with you for tonight.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
You too, John.
I see.
All right, the next item is 4 Pheasantwood Drive, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so Jennifer Fanning, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we are here also. Go ahead.
Well, so I had just contacted the Conservation Commission, Judy Green, because I was interested in I tidying up this space along Old Nahant, which is just covered in just solid weeds. And so putting down some grass or something. I don't have a specific plan. I'm actually just at this point asking if I can put something there to prevent just weeds taking over the whole area, which it does every summer.
So I know we had a question in for our, we had a couple of questions that we had asked to get answered ourselves. You know, a couple of things. There is town-owned property to some point from the street to the edge. And then on the other side, there is a wetland with its protection also. I'm not sure how much space is left in between, but Judy, do we get a response back yet on the questions we had left for DPW?
No,
Town
they
engineer,
have-
sorry.
No, Bill hasn't responded.
Okay.
Can I see my screen? Is this the area we're talking about?
Well, this is Pheasantwood, but the space I was talking about was actually on Old Nahant, which is around the corner. So this is one side of our property, and if you turn the corner, that's the other side of our property.
Coming
It's
down this way?
basically that strip that you're looking at.
Okay,
And here it's actually looking pretty good, but it gets a lot worse.
does it?
Oh, yeah.
So I guess just a question, why would you kind of want to add more maintenance to what you may already have to maintain?
Well, I don't want to add more maintenance, but if I don't do anything, it just grows over with weeds and vines, waist high. It just looks very, very messy. It climbs up the telephone pole. I pulled it off myself. But I would like to try to find some kind of solution for that area to look a little bit nicer. And this is my first property, so I'm not an expert in landscaping, but I'm basically looking for permission to do something with this area so that it's not so overgrown. The vines grow up the trees, you know, it's just a lot.
Is that, I can't tell from here, but is that poison ivy growing up the tree?
I don't know if it's poison ivy, but there are vines that grow up the trees, yeah.
Actually, no, it's not.
And I
No, it's that mile a minute.
Yeah.
And this, I think, is a picture from last year, so the vines haven't started up yet, but they will, you know.
Do we know if there's any invasive species there? Judy, Elaine, or anybody?
It's virtually all invasive.
Is that definitely mile a minute vine?
If it's not that, it's something closely related that chokes out the trees.
That definitely should come out.
Yeah.
Last year, I spent a lot of effort to cut off all these vines. There's a vine which is as thick as almost like 1.5 inch. That is, yeah, as you mentioned, choking off the tree. I cut it off, and then it's even pumping the water out of the ground. So
That's probably poison ivy. It grows into a thick vine.
right. So and then there's a lot of these poison ivy. There's a lot of vine with the spikes. Yeah, that too. And
That'd probably be bittersweet.
yeah,
Maybe.
I spent a lot of effort trying to kind of clean it up and then shred it off this area. So it's a lot of work. And Jennifer, my wife, just try to make more effort, try to make this area better.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of hand weeding and pulling up vines before they get too bad.
All right, so here we go. This is a good aerial view of the corner. So your house is in the left right there. That's your house?
No, we're actually kind of covered by the trees in this picture. We're to the right. You can
Okay.
sort of see
Oh,
our
I see the driveway. Yep, got it.
That's it.
You've got a very shaded lot.
Very.
Where is the wetland? Is there a wetland in here?
It's in there.
A lot of privacy from the street.
We do.
It
We like
drops
them.
down right from the corner.
What did you say, Judy?
It drops down right inside the corner
The
of
wetland?
Old Nahant and Pheasantwood.
Okay.
Oh, this connects under the street to the other side, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I know exactly where this is.
So is there a plan, or are you looking for some advice on a plan?
I'm just starting to look into possibilities, getting a quote on what it would even cost, think about what might go in there. But I would like to put something there that will just prevent those weeds from growing up.
What about just lawn mowing? I mean, if you're interested in just keeping the weeds from growing up, what about just mowing them down with your lawnmower and just keeping them mowed? I don't think anybody's going to object whether it's town property or not. I've also written Bill Renault, and from the lack of interest I've seen, I don't think anybody's going to get particularly concerned if you just mow that strip.
Yeah, there's I think we have weed whack like last year.
Yeah.
I mean it doesn't kill the weeds, so then they just like there's a lot of dock there that just gets very woody. Even if you weed whack it, it comes right back. And there's not really a lot of grass left. It's very patchy. So we basically have a lawn, quote unquote, of just kind of whacked weeds, because it's 80% weed right now.
So what would you be looking to do? Would you
Right.
be looking to just dig it up and start again?
Yeah, maybe put down some grass seeds or something, or ground cover, something like that.
The ground cover, I think, would make more sense than trying to seed it, especially with the shade. And again, you do have a wetland, further in that we would need you to stay away from.
Is there any required buffer between the curb and what they do? I mean, obviously you don't want, creeping vines up to the edge of the curb that could come into the street. I'm just wondering, maybe that's a question for DPW?
They're
Is
never
there-
going to do it. They're not going to do anything.
No, but is there a required buffer that they need to maintain there? I mean, obviously you don't recommend planting right up to the edge of the green, right?
I mean, if this was a sidewalked area, it would be town-owned property so many feet in. I don't know if it's 7 feet or what it is. But the landowners are always expected to shovel the sidewalk and or maintain the trees or vegetation on that strip.
I don't know if it applies here. The sidewalk looks like it comes up to a ramp and then shoots up.
Yeah, there is no sidewalk.
Right.
But had there been, I think it's 7 feet or something like that from the edge.
Yeah.
In, which would be considered town-owned. Elaine, would it make sense for you to take a look and see what type of vegetation is there, and is in fact there anything invasive in there that would be beneficial to try to control?
Yeah, I also, yes, I'd be happy to come out. And the other thing I would recommend is that that within that wetland area, that we just make them stewards of that property and take out all of those invasive vines. They're going to pull down those trees. They've got bittersweet in there. The only thing I would really recommend is make sure you know which one is poison ivy, because if you start pulling down poison ivy, it can make you very sick.
You don't want to mow
But
it
yes,
either.
give them
And
permission to take down
don't
all
burn
those
it either.
vines. What?
Yeah,
Do
we
not
won't.
burn it if it's poison ivy.
We're not gonna burn it.
Oh, don't burn it either. Yeah, I mean, take down those vines. Those vines are killing those trees. And yes, I'd be happy to come over. And, if you want to do more than weed whack, then I take it that what you're looking to do is dig that up, take out all the roots, and then lay some kind of a ground cover that will do well in shaded areas. Have I got that right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay. So why don't I come over I have a lot of site visits to do in Wakefield next week. Can you give me your number again? I'll give you a call. We can go out and take a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. My number is 504
Yeah,
710
yeah.
5073. I'm here all the time right now.
Yes, I get that.
Imagine
Oh,
that.
and I do have a question for you while I have you. How is that water running out of that wetland? Is it still blocked, or has it been cleared and running
It is-
freely?
It is still blocked, and we still have the pond there. And as I check our neighbors, there's a pipe. There's very little water going through. So something is clogging the pipe.
It's still not cleared. All right, let me talk to the stormwater person at the engineering department, because I don't know what happened, but they were of the impression that problem had been taken care of, and clearly it hasn't.
I did speak with someone from engineering. They said that they just rescheduled all of their jobs and they're trying to get them done by July 1st. So they're telling us that they're really going to try to get it cleared before July 1st.
So they're going back to take another look at it then?
I don't know. They didn't
Yeah.
really say, but they said that it's on the list of jobs and they're trying to get them done by.
All right, then yes. So then you should be on their list to have them take another try at clearing out that pipe.
Mhm.
All right, so I'll call you next week, and we'll take a look, and you can talk about what you have in mind, and we can talk about your possibilities out there, and perhaps take a look, and I can advise you as to what kind of vines you have climbing up those trees.
That'd be great.
And I would recommend, going as maintenance free as possible. I think ground cover would be a much better suggestion than trying to grass that area. I think it'd be more successful with the ground cover
Mhm.
than grass. But Elaine can take a look.
Yeah,
and give
oh,
you her
definitely.
opinion.
It's not easy to get grass to grow in a shady area.
Mhm. Yeah.
I can't get it to grow in the sun.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, so I'll call you next week.
Great.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Take a look.
Yeah,
I thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay.
So, hey, I have a question. Ken, are you still thinking you want to stay on the commission?
Thinking twice.
Pardon me?
I'm thinking twice right now. I'm
Good
locked
job,
in, I'm locked
Peter.
in.
Pardon me?
It's a good job, Peter.
Yeah.
Do we have any other business?
No.
Nothing.
No? All right.
So we need to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Is that
I would, wait.
a motion?
Wait a minute, how did you do that? Oh, reactions. Okay. Did you only get 2 reactions?
Oh, yeah. I got
Before we adjourn, I have a question.
Sure.
Okay.
So we've gone over a number of conditions for Logus Avenue, but I'm assuming that the official writing of the order of conditions is taking place next week, right? Or next
Yes.
meeting, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Elaine, you already started a pretty good summary of those.
Yeah, and Elaine, thank you for going back through your notes.
Oh, yeah.
It's so disconcerting when this thing covers such a long period of time
Yeah.
with continuances, and it's just so hard to keep the string straight in your mind. And so thank you for
You're welcome.
that refresher.
And
I was totally taken by surprise. I thought that everyone was favorably disposed as at the end of last meeting, that this was just mop up this meeting. It completely took me by surprise. I guess I shouldn't be surprised.
well, it's
Well, I
tough.
think the residents were always in the back of their mind hoping that there was something that would drastically change and they wouldn't either pull away or, would change it drastically. And I don't know. I think it was just them being too optimistic.
Yeah, it's tough when you feel like they're impugning your your character by saying, what are you guys doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only two good members of the commission got off.
They're
And that
gone.
just left us.
And you people are no good. You're no good. And I had to control myself and say, look, we're volunteers. We have no control who the town council appoints and people are appointed
Yeah.
and
Right.
nine. And we just do the best we can. We're just volunteers. We do the best we can within the parameters of the law. But
Exactly.
I just had to bite my tongue because it was tough to hear, but anyway.
Yes, we all had to bite our tongue.
So, all right. Well, Ken, welcome again.
No,
And,
and people
hope to
don't
stick
usually,
around.
people don't usually do that to us, Ken, I have to say.
Yeah, really?
Mhm.
Not usually.
It's been a
No,
while.
this was very unusual, and but you know what? I'm glad. I don't know. That's fine.
Well, the odd part was it sounded like you went above and beyond what is required or what you've done previously. So I thought the opposite reaction was going to happen.
Yeah, we
You know,
did go above and beyond what we historically have done. We actually set some precedents.
Right.
Yeah,
that we
but
haven't.
what they did is, they're going to take down 150 trees to put 3 houses up or something, and it really was sort of a,
Right.
so the
They'll
whole
never
thing was
change.
crying shame.
But we have no control over that. Nothing.
Yeah,
we-
that's right. That's right. And that
It's a
was what
horrible
was sort of,
project.
it just seemed like a monumental amount of tree cut. He even said, "How many trees are you going to take down?" He said, "Too numerous to count."
Can I intervene here for a minute?
Yes, Elaine.
Yeah.
please.
We're off the public record now, right?
No, we're
No.
still recording.
No, you're still
Judy, scratch those
recording.
last couple of sentences.
Right.
Bob's recording it.
We're
Yeah.
still recording, and you're talking about a public hearing that is closed.
Yes,
So we
we'll
don't
stop.
want to get in trouble with the open meeting law.
That's right.
So
Righty.
you did have some other business though, Elaine, didn't you?
No, I don't believe so.
Nothing?
No.
Judy, did you?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so Peter had made a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, so we will poll individually. And Frank is a yay.
Oh, yay.
Yay.
Tressa, yay. Peter,
Yeah.
yay. Ken, you can vote on this.
Yay.
Ken is a yay, and I'm also a yay. So we have a unanimous vote to adjourn.
Can I just ask a housekeeping matter? I know you don't want to be voted in as chair, but I just noticed someone addressed you, the town engineer and his reporter addressed you as vice chair.
That's correct.
Mhm.
I don't know if we need to officially, I know that comes as a bittersweet thing to do. But I don't
I
know.
think we should. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Bob as the chair.
We just adjourned, Peter.
Yes,
Next meeting.
Next
Put it on the
time.
agenda.
yes, we did adjourn. So yes, there is no votes.
You want
And
to
I'm
reopen the
okay-
meeting?
And for the record, I am okay being vice chair. And there's nothing requiring us to have a chair to my
All
knowledge.
right. Okay, we can do that. I just thought I'd bring it up. Okay.
All right.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Have a
Good
good
night.
night.
Thank
Bye.
you.